Right. Thank you all for joining us today for our Attitude session. Today we have Jerusha Stephens, who is an alumni of AOMA. Uh, just a quick introduction about our wonderful guest, Jerusha Stephens. Jerusha holds a Mississippi First Acupuncture license, and she founded the Mississippi Oriental Medicine Association, which helped usher in the state's first acupuncture license bill. Her Architects talk today is titled Starting from Scratch, which will also include career information. She is recruiting for some positions in her practice, so she'll be sharing that information with our students at the end of her talk today. She will be describing her journey and how she started her practice once she graduated with her degree from AOMA, and how that experience shaped her career and propelled her into her current position as a specialist and expert in the field of reproductive acupuncture. Jerusha, please welcome to this Attitude talk with us today. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Danny.
right,
This
good.
is a great opportunity to reconnect. And can everybody hear me?
Thumbs up, yes.
Okay. So again, thank you to AOMA for educating me and now having me 18 years later. So I've been in practice for 18 years, most of which here in Mississippi. I attended AOMA between 1999 and I graduated in December of 2002. And at that time, brand new acupuncturist. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be doing, but I did work with another acupuncturist in Austin for some time. I was down on Guadalupe, and it kind of was a slow roll. I mean, it's hard to get started as a new acupuncturist. And I think that would be true anywhere because you don't have your supervisor to confirm your treatment choices. I've discovered that when I graduated, I really didn't know much of anything as far as how to promote my business, where I wanted to focus my professional future. I was just kind of swimming around. I was still in my late 20s and I loved Austin. I got a Texas license and I stayed there for a couple years, but I always had to have a second job. I was a pedicab driver downtown. I was a barista at Starbucks because they had insurance for part-time employees. These are the things that I couldn't afford for myself, but I knew that it was important. And so, like I said, I moved from rental office to rental office. I even had some time at the White Crane Pharmacy on Congress. I'm not sure if that is still in place there or not, but they had some treatment rooms there that you could rent out kind of one-off, and that was great for someone trying to get started. But again, time went on and I realized that I had put a lot of time, money, effort, and heart into school, and that things, they weren't panning out like I wanted them to in Austin, even though I loved, running on the Greenbelt. It just was not doing for me what it needed to do. So I felt like I was struggling a lot. And even though I still had great friends and community there, I knew something had to change. And then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, where I'm from, and my mom lost her home entirely to that storm. And I was just really struck by that experience. And it kind of created this sea change within me where I was already in a place where I was looking for somewhere else to go. All signs were pointing to me to go back home. And I didn't really know what that meant as far as acupuncture, but I did know that I needed to spend some time at home to try and help my mom recover from the storm. And so I came back to Mississippi and I helped her get back on her feet. And I returned to Texas, and I just said that, this is my last month here. I'm going to move home to Mississippi. And while I was at home, I'd done some research about acupuncture and the laws. And to me, they weren't very clear cut. They let doctors do acupuncture, but they didn't have licensure for acupuncture. So when I moved back, that uncertainty didn't sit well with me. So I actually went and worked on a cruise ship doing acupuncture for 6 months. And that was a great experience. I joined out of Miami. I had training there for about a week, and then joined the spa on Royal Caribbean. And I did Eastern and Western Caribbean for about 4 months. And then I sailed across the Atlantic and went to the Mediterranean, and Barcelona was my port of call. The cruise ship experience was a lot of hard work, but I gained some serious professional skills, because they are very driven by how much money you are making. And that was not at the forefront of my thought process while I was in Texas. Of course, I wanted to feed myself, but the spa on a ship is just very financially motivated. So they teach you and ask you to do above and beyond, which incorporated weekly symposiums on the ship, where I had to present, give a PowerPoint presentation and a demonstration. And so I had to learn how to demonstrate acupuncture safely in front of a crowd. That was exciting. And always it was unpredictable, because you can have a heckler, or you can have the person who praised acupuncture, and you just didn't know what you were going to walk into. So that really prepared me. Also professionally, we had a dress code. And so there was no more wearing what you wanted. It was business casual, and you needed to look sharp. And that kind of elevated my my mindset. And although, I love freedom and of expression and being who you are, it really worked to get people to take me seriously. Because I think when you're young and maybe you have a lot of tattoos or whatever, putting on a business suit helped people take me seriously. And I'm sure there's lots of feelings about that. But at the end of the day, being clean and professional and looking good made a big difference. So I was done with the cruise ship after about 6 months, and I moved back to Mississippi, and boomerang child lived with my mama on her couch for a little bit while I was trying to figure out my next move. And I decided that it was worth the risk for me to see if Mississippi was ready for acupuncture. And what I mean by ready is, would they be open to it? I mean, it is a very rural state with not a lot of exposure. When I went to acupuncture school, I had never had acupuncture. My first treatment was in the AOMA student clinic. I was just so drawn to the philosophy of Chinese medicine that it resonated with me, and I took a leap of faith and just went with it. Something only I could have done at 23. I don't know that I could do that now, but all that to say that there were no resources for acupuncture here. There were no acupuncturists here. It wasn't in our culture. And so I just decided to rent a little space and quietly practice acupuncture. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way that people should do things, but this is the way that I did it. And I knew that it was questionable legally. And so I walked into that knowing that I ran a risk. And I had heard about how Texas had gotten their licensure back in the 70s, and it required getting arrested. And there were a lot of people that blazed a lot of trails before me as far as acupuncture had gone. And I was like, well, Mississippi just hasn't caught up yet. So we'll see what happens. And so I opened a little one-room clinic and spread the word amongst friends and family and yoga studios and really anybody that would listen. And I started to develop a clientele better than actually I'd had in Austin within 10 months. And so I started talking to more doctors, and it was exciting, and I was getting the ball rolling. And then I got a certified letter in the mail from the medical board that was a cease and desist. And in the letter, they said that I had to immediately stop what I was doing because I was practicing medicine without a license. And so I probably cried for a couple days because I did not know how to get around this situation. I was feeling very defeated because I had finally gotten on a roll with my profession, and then I had this huge roadblock. And so I took a couple days and got my headspace together, and I called the medical board, and I indeed closed my little clinic. And I began to wrap my mind around what it would take to get a law passed in Mississippi. And one of the good things about a rural state is that it is very closely knit. And so there's just one degree of separation between me and a representative or a senator. And so, you know, the student loan bills didn't stop coming in. And so I called whomever would listen to me at the Capitol, and I talked to them about my story. Meanwhile, I got a license in Tennessee so that I could still practice somewhere, and I would commute to Memphis and work a couple days a week, and then I would come back and I would wait at tables at a fine dining establishment. And that may seem pretty rough when you've got an expensive master's of science, but I had to do something, and I wasn't going to leave. And so I dug in, and in 2008, we got a law introduced, a bill introduced that failed in committee. So that was a big disappointment. So we had to wait a whole other year before we introduced another bill. And we did that in 2009. And lo and behold, that bill actually passed. And it was a very strict, hard to deal with piece of legislation that cracked the door so I could get my foot in and other practitioners could get licensed. So essentially, it meant that acupuncturists were allowed to get licensed through the medical board. And at that time, you had to have a written referral from a physician before you could have acupuncture. And so what that meant was that I had a very busy fax machine trying to get referrals from doctors, and to try to get a physician to write down on a form that a patient could come and have acupuncture was very cumbersome. But I had that license. The experience of going to the Capitol, we had to give a voice to the movement. And so we called it the Mississippi Oriental Medicine Association. And I mean, I literally started it in my living room. I asked friends and family for donations. It was enough to pay for some business cards and letterhead to make me look more official than I really was. That whole fake it till you make it thing is true in my case, because I really don't feel like in my lifetime I had much business going up to the Capitol and trying to do anything. But when you're faced with not being able to practice this beautiful medicine, and 44 other states had done it before your state, and you're kind of used to your state being the last to do everything, then it made sense for me to just keep plugging along. And eventually it paid off. That's MOMA, as we call it, Mississippi Oriental Medicine Association, just literally was a nonprofit that I created in order to give voice to, so that it wasn't Jerusha Stephens going to the Capitol. It was a group of people, even though the group of people was really, really small. So in order to get that law passed, we got lots of people to write letters and call their legislators. And like I said, lo and behold, it worked. And I began working in a medical spa with a physician. So he went to the UCLA acupuncture school for doctors. It's called medical acupuncture. And he was one of the only guys or doctors in Mississippi doing acupuncture. And he felt pretty inadequate. He was a family medicine doctor. He loved the medicine, but couldn't really have enough time to spend with his patients. And so when he found out that I was looking, he hired me on and gave me the opportunity to build my practice. And I worked with Dr. Mitchell for 7 years in the medical spa, and I gained a lot of momentum and expertise with him helping me in a lot of ways. He was family medicine. And so anytime I had a question about something that was going on with the patient, he and I would communicate. And I learned a tremendous amount from him as well. And so after about 7 years, I got so busy that I was taking over the esthetician's room when she wasn't working. I was doing everything I could to serve more of the community, to be busier. I was in a commission-based pay with him, and he offered me a great deal, but at the same time, I was really hemmed in by the space, and I was working late and going in early, trying to avoid their schedule so that I could see more patients. And as time went on, I discovered that it was time for me to move into my own space. At this point, I had already had my first child. I guess I should say that I'm mom number 1, acupuncturist number 2, wife number 3, although I should probably say wife number 2 and acupuncturist number 3. But they're all really important to me. But all that to say that I was really scared to go out on my own because I was very comfortable. I had a very easy schedule. I was able to go exercise when I wanted. I was able to take time off. He never gave me a hard time or was pushy. So I was really spoiled, to be honest. And but I also had this feeling that I needed to go out on my own. And at this point, I'd really established my fertility work, and I became ABORM certified in 2010. And so I've kind of held that specialty certification for 11 years now. And that actually found me in Austin. One of the questions here is, what drew you to specializing in reproductive acupuncture? And I would say that the first fertility patient that came to see me that was going through IVF told me her list of medications, and I had no idea what she was taking or what that process looked like. And she taught me. And of course, the day she got a positive pregnancy test from her embryo transfer, I was hooked. I was like, I love this because it is so results oriented. And the ultimate goal is live birth, but the pregnancy work just really excited me and made me feel useful because I was helping people grow their families. And after having my own baby, I was like, there's really not much more special than that. So, when I went out on my own, I think the thing that surprised me the most about going out on my own, that's one of the questions, what most surprised you about starting your own practice, is that although, I drive the locomotive, I drive the train, and my cadence or my rhythm is what creates the chi flow that the clinic has. The clinic now, 5 years in, runs itself. It needs people there to do that, but it has its own flow. And it is something that surprises me that when I'm not here, it still operates. And it still operates because I do have another acupuncturist that now works with me. She has her doctorate, and she is amazing. And if I had more time, I'd tell you all about her, but we have a team mentality here, and she's great. And there's a lot of discussion that I could talk to y'all about on the reproductive medicine side, and I'll go into some detail there because y'all are advanced students. And so I think that over time, I used mentors through ABORM especially to help me shape how I approached my fertility patients. So I am a heavy believer in, if you're trying to conceive naturally, I would love for you to be taking herbs, having acupuncture. I do 2 to 3 times a month. I know that's on the low end. Part of that is because my schedule is so busy. It's hard for me to get somebody in every week, and I can see 11 to 13 people a day. So it's really busy, but we still get patients pregnant with that frequency in taking herbs. I also really love BBT charts. I'm not sure if you guys have delved into basal body temperatures, and it's not Chinese medicine, but it is considered old school whenever you're talking to an OBGYN. People used to take their BBTs in order to either avoid or capture their ovulation window. And BBT charting, there are a lot of nuances with the BBT chart that can help you understand blood deficiency, qi stagnation, yang deficiency, yin deficiency, estrogen versus progesterone. So whenever it comes to Chinese medicine and Western medicine, I incorporate a lot of that while the patient is gathering their own data, and that data put on a chart really helps patients do it yourself as far as fertility management. And so educating patients, especially polycystic ovarian syndrome patients, which is the number one reason why patients are coming to see me, female patients are coming to see me for fertility management, is because of PCOS. And I use electroacupuncture for PCOS patients, especially that are not ovulating. They may have amenorrhea to induce ovulation. And I love that treatment. It works really, really well. I do electroacupuncture from Zigong Shui to spleen 6. And we do that until ovulation occurs, and we can tell that through the BBT charting. And then extensive herbal knowledge, sometimes based on the phase of their cycle. So those are some interesting techniques and treatment styles. I would say somewhere between TCM and Japanese in my style of needling. It's nothing special. I mean, I really don't feel like it is very unique. I think that it is very neutral. I don't think that there is much to my needling technique that sets me apart. I think it is the whole package of being able to listen well, being able to educate, helping patients educate themselves, and then they become empowered because they know more about how their cycle looks and what it's supposed to look like. And looking back on my time as a Master of Acupuncture student, what do you wish you knew? I would say I wish I had known more about the financial part of business, more about student loans, more about knowing that in the long run, you're just going to get better and better, because experience will be your guiding light. I mean, the more patients that you see, the better you're going to get. Your brain is going to remember all of the nuances from patient to patient, and that's going to help you build. I mean, you just don't know anything but the basics when you graduate. And that's good, because you have to build your own style and your own methods. And just knowing that, I can't wait to be a 65-year-old acupuncturist. I'm 45 now. I'm going to know so much more and be so much better and have that much more experience. And so looking back, I wish that I had also realized that leaving Austin, as much as I loved it, and as hard as it was to break the bonds with the friends, that I had felt so strong during acupuncture school really helped me fledge into the next chapter of my life. And I'm so glad that it happened. And I have been back to Austin. I actually went back last week, and it was ACL Fest, and I couldn't get downtown. I wasn't going to go. So I stayed out at my friend's house out at the lake, but it sure was nice to kind of feel like I was back. Another question here, what kind of work-life balance would you recommend for new graduates as they get their practice started, particularly from a perspective of the number of patients per week, number of hours or days worked a week? I guess that, okay, maybe this is not very TCM, but my mantra was work your butt off. I mean, there was no work-life balance at that time. What happened was when you weren't busy with a patient, you were doing things that you liked, or you were trying to promote your business, because it's your baby that's not a human. And so it takes lots of time, effort, love, TLC. And so really, as a new graduate, you have to know how much all your bills cost. And then you divide that by whatever number or whatever cost your acupuncture is per treatment. So I charge $150 for a new patient and $100 for follow-ups with 0 discounts or giveaways. I do take insurance. It has been hit or miss, I'll say that. And that's something that I'm learning later in my career. But all that to say that there wasn't a whole lot of work-life balance in the beginning for me, because I was either working that part-time job and doing acupuncture on the side, or doing acupuncture with a part-time job on the side. It was just like work as much as you can, but still go run on the green belt. It was easy to do those things in Texas, but whenever I moved home, I really wanted to focus as much time as I could on all, everything that I've discussed. Now that I'm a mom and that I'm running my own business and I have a satellite clinic, the work-life balance thing is definitely more of a struggle, especially when you layer in COVID. So I can't say I've been the best at that recently. And as a mom, unfortunately, your self-care kind of gets put on the back burner a lot of times. So it's really important to continue to advocate for your own health and wellness, so that you can get up refreshed in the morning and be able to go to the clinic and do it all over again for your patients. You have to learn how to leave things at the clinic, because they're not going to serve you while you're at home, unless you're just quickly, responding to an email. But I remember when I was a new graduate, while I was still in Austin, I had my first palliative care patient. She had pancreatic cancer, and she was dying, and I would do house calls, and it was a very moving experience for me, because I could not help her not die, but I could hold her hand, and I could do what I could to help her with pain management in the end. So, that was very, very humbling. And I had to learn how to not carry that with me after I left her house, because obviously that's a heavy thing for anybody to have to go through. But my dad told me one time that you're not really human until you've seen someone born and you see someone die. And, having that experience with that patient and that family, really shaped my career, but it mostly helped me to, at the end of the day, wash your hands and hang up your coat and leave those things behind, because you need to go home, be with your family, take care of yourself, so you can get up and do it all over again. So that is kind of my mantra. I'm not as great at always putting myself first, because there are so many other people that need to be taken care of, but that sort of might be my nature. Did you have mentors to help guide you after graduating from acupuncture school? I would say my mentors were my co-graduates, which is not much of a mentor-mentee relationship, but there are a few people that graduated ahead of me that were really great about answering nuts and bolts kind of questions. People that were running right beside me doing the same thing I was, kind of some of the same complaints and good things happening too. And so I feel like later, whenever I specialized and took the ABORM exam, is whenever I met my mentors and my professional life developed. And let's see, we also have the insurance question. So recently, I do use electronic health records. I switched over during COVID. I love it. If I never had to start on paper, I would go that route. And so with the advent of my clinic moving to electronic health records, I also started to incorporate a third-party billing. So I knew that I couldn't do it myself because it's like speaking a foreign language. It really is. And I felt like I was going to do something wrong, or rather than that, just not do it right and not get paid. And so I put it off for a long time. And in Mississippi, it's pretty rarely covered anyway. So I decided to use a third-party biller, and basically the insurance gets verified through them and they let me know what the coverage is. About 80% of the time it's no coverage. So I'm dealing with a very small percentage of people that actually have coverage, and I'm learning the ins and outs of using the right codes and all of the things. I will say it eats up a fair amount of time. The cash-based business is wonderful. And I get to do that here because there's not a lot of competition. If I had a lot of competition, it would look a lot different. I'm also max capacity, so I'm not really starving for those patients. Now, I do wish that those patients could enjoy their benefits. And I am working with several, like Federal Blue Cross Blue Shield has great coverage. And so I'm kind of biting off little bits at a time, trying to become better at the insurance coverage work. I do not take VA or Medicare at this point because I'm so busy that I can't afford to not get paid if I don't do it correctly. And so cash-based business for me here is what works the best. Another question I had was, did you use professionals like attorneys and CPAs to start your practice? So a CPA, yes, I did. I've had a CPA for a long time with my husband and our family work. And so whenever I went out on my own, I used his firm. And I have a bookkeeper now, and she and I are buddies. And, you know, I am able to communicate with her very well. It has gotten more expensive over time. As my business has grown, there's been more add-ons. And I mean, I promise every year it seems to be $15 more expensive than it was the last year, but that's about how it is with every profession, I think. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I do not want to do that work. I'm an acupuncturist, not a CPA. Just like I'm not an insurance biller. And so I am in great favor of hiring professionals to do their professional thing. Luckily, I have two siblings that are attorneys. So they give me their opinions, even when they're not solicited. So I don't have an attorney. I have many attorney friends and family members. I did make really good friends with my banker. And so I did take out a $20,000 loan to start my business. And I promised myself that I was going to get it paid off in between 2 and 3 years. And I did that handily. I was able to make high payments and get out from under that pretty quickly. And so what I did is, when I proposed my business, I created a spreadsheet on how many patients it was going to take for me to cover my costs, so that he could see that I was serious. And he was a family friend, which helped. But he just told me, he said, "I'm glad you're not another coffee shop." He said, "This is the most interesting business I have seen in a long time. There's nothing else out there like it. And so here's the loan. So I did hire not hire, but I did use a banker, and I did pull out a loan. It was low interest, and that was a risk that I took, and I'm glad that I did, because although my clinic is very stark, it doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it. That was really great for me during COVID. And marketing. What do I do for my practice? So not very much at this point, which is great. I have a presence on Google. It has many testimonials. There's a question about testimonials too. My Google test, if you Google acupuncture Jackson, Mississippi, you can see all of the great reviews that I've gotten from patients. I did request that of them. If you have had an experience here, please share it. And so my Google rating is really high, and I think that helps. It also helps I don't have a lot of competition. Again, I have a waiting list for patients, and so I turned down my Google presence to the minimum, because I just can't take on a lot of new patients right now. I have done other types of advertising, but to this day, I still know that word of mouth is the best in this community. It's just lots of family members come in after one another, and I really think that I can advertise until I'm blue in the face, but until someone has a personal testimony about something as intricate as acupuncture, that's really what kind of helps. And it also helps when doctors recommend it. And so to segue into what I'm doing now, I have in February opened a satellite clinic inside a fertility clinic. And so I'm in Flowood, Mississippi, which is what we are now calling the medical mile. So there is a lot of specialist offices in the area, including an IVF doctor that is literally a block and a half from my brick and mortar clinic. And so I go to his wellness clinic. He opened up an adjacent wellness clinic to his IVF clinic for reproductive age women. It has yoga, nutrition, acupuncture, massage. This is state of the art for Mississippi, really for the Southeast. It's an all-in-one stop where you can get your really great prenatals and supplements, as well as enjoy all of these different modalities for helping you to optimize your fertility. And so I'm working with him doing a lot of research-based treatments for frozen embryo transfer. And so it's really exciting that we're collecting some data on research that has already been done. The research is on day of transfer. I'm not sure if you guys have reviewed this, but there is some research on live birth outcomes from frozen embryo transfers that includes a treatment 30 minutes before transfer and 30 minutes after transfer, and it needs to be done inside the clinic. And so I have been working with that doctor in the clinic since February, and it's been great to be able to collect this data and be able to, it's one thing to think that you help patients, and it's another to know it. And so I'm real results oriented in my thinking. And so it's been great to really see those numbers come together. I do use a scheduling system. I do not book online right now because I'm not taking any new patients. So also following up with patients, like I said, that's frequency. For certain conditions, it's consecutive weeks in a row, and for some there's some space in between. I have plenty of patients that come for their maintenance, which is just they come once a month for self-care. I have some patients that regardless rain, snow, sleet, shine, they're going to come and have acupuncture once a week, whether I like it or not. They're going to be there, and those are typically my sweet little geriatric patients that just feel like longevity is what they're after. And also on my website, I have some pretty amazing testimonials. So www.sproutedheartacupuncture.com. I have a whole page for fertility testimonials. A friend of mine is a filmmaker, and I somehow talked him into coming to the clinic and filming these little families with their babies that had been created on my watch. And so that's a proud moment, but it was 6 or 7 years ago. So things have changed since then, but I think ultimately those testimonials speak for themselves. And a particular question here, is there any advice you would give future practitioners looking to set up in Mississippi? Any parts of the process to plan for in advance or keep in mind? So I think that my advice for Mississippi, because we don't have that physician's referral requirement anymore. I didn't mention that. We peeled that off of our statute in 2017. And so anybody can have acupuncture whenever they want now in Mississippi. When we had that referral issue, that was a big stumbling block for patients, practitioners, and doctors alike. And so now that that is not an issue, I think that the biggest hurdle is just education, because, Mississippi is a unique place that's very open to neighbors, and they really want to get to know you. And, it's funny how people think they know you, even though they just met you. It's just that kind of niceties. People let you pull over in traffic. They don't do that in Austin anymore. So I feel like there's nothing really special, except that, you gotta try to figure out how many patients you have to see in a week to cover your bills. I don't think that it's any different than what you would do elsewhere. We just have to really work from the ground up here, because some people, don't even know that they should not have, bacon 3 meals a day. So you really have to have a lot of patience in helping people understand that health also involves their food and how they care for themselves. And so you really have to be patient and work from the ground up and meet people where they are, and understand that the majority of the people that come to see me have never, ever had acupuncture, and that they are driven there sometimes out of desperation. I've tried everything. I'm at the end of my rope. I'm hoping that this is the Hail Mary. I mean, I've heard all of these things before. To just, people walking in off the street that are just curious and about acupuncture. So I don't think that there's really anything special or any parts of the process to plan for, except that licensure in Mississippi right now is really easy, because they passed occupational. So any kind of profession, if you've had a license in another state for a year, they basically have easy reciprocity. So that's not going to apply to any new graduates, but if you'd had a license before, it's really easy to get licensed in Mississippi, whereas in the past it could take months. And otherwise, I think I have about 6 minutes left, so I want to make sure there aren't any other questions. But I also wanted to mention that I am hiring. I do talk about this wait list because we have such a great need for more hands to serve the community. And I am more than happy to accept any resumes from someone that might be graduating in the near future. I think that there's going to be room here for one or maybe more than one acupuncturist to come on board and work with. I think that learning in this environment would be an ideal place for a new graduate. And the other acupuncturists and I both have teaching hearts. And so, we would not mind being mentors in a way if needed. I mean, not every new graduate would need a lot of hand holding, but some would. And so, it would be commission based, and I can give you more details, but like I said, I have a nice long wait list of people that are trying to get in. And what was happening was I would see a new patient and my schedule would be so booked, I couldn't see him again for 3 weeks. And when you have, tendonitis of the elbow, that's not going to work. You have to see people more frequently. And so I kind of had to put a stop to new patients, which has accumulated a backlog. So, so again, my goal is to try and touch more people's lives with this medicine, and get Mississippi into a healthier state of being. Are there any questions? I see a few chats here.
I'm sure a student has a question for you. I'll let the student go ahead with their question first.
I do have a Mississippi specific question.
Okay.
As far as body work in Mississippi, like TWNA, do we have to go through another licensure board for that, or is that covered under our license? Or I'm not even sure if I'm articulating that correctly, but I didn't know if we needed to check in with the massage therapy board or anything like that.
That's a great question. And so is it Ann or Ann Sanders? Are you double name?
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie. Okay, Anne-Marie. Sorry about that. Anne-Marie. So we have, our statute includes acupuncture, herbal medicine, as well as dietary and lifestyle recommendations. And I believe that massage is also on the list of things that are covered. I can check our statute to let you know for sure. I know that body work is part of what I do. I mean, I do cupping all the time. I'm palpating all the time. I'm not in the room for very long with them, as in hands-on doing massage like TWNA. But I really feel like that is in our statute, but I can get specific with you on that. I would not expect you to need to go through the massage board because, Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine is an umbrella term for everything that we practice. And that definitely has body work included, but I'll get specific with the statute and let you know.
There is a professional organization. Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm the registrar at AOMA, and there is a professional organization that you might be thinking of, Anne-Marie, that is the American Organization for the Bodywork Therapies of Asia, and that is a AOBTA, and that's a national professional certification where if you've done your minimum practice hours of 70 hours in the required field, and then also a lot of other requirements, then you can apply through certification through them. I am not sure if body work is being regulated by any acupuncture license boards. I think that there might be some descriptive language about including it in your practice, but I don't. And Beth, Dr. Beth Hallett would be able to quote me on this. I myself my background's in social work, and I am not an acupuncturist, but I've been with AOMA for a couple of years. But I believe that there aren't any states that are specifically licensing bodywork practice.
Good to know. Thank you.
Jerusha, I have first of all, does anyone have any other questions for Jerusha? Okay, I do have a few questions for you. Thank you so much, by the way, for being so detailed with your presentation and this information session. Quick question, what did you charge? This may be helpful for a student. What did you charge when you first started out with your practice? Have you always been charging the $150 range or?
No, I think that it was much less in Austin. And I think that it was probably maybe a little bit more than what the student clinic was charging. I mean, I gave away so much acupuncture getting started. I don't remember exactly. I do know that when I went and worked on the cruise ship, they charged so much more. And so I learned that I had devalued what we offer by having a really low rate. And so I felt like I was able to elevate my professionalism in a way by creating the fee that I've had ever since I've had a Mississippi license. So it has been the same since 2009, but previous to that, I think it may have been like $100 for a new patient and $80 for a follow-up.
All right, thank you. All right, we're hitting the time right now, but I want to ask one more question. As we, I know you were promoting, the job opening in your practice. So quick question, can you just share 3 advantages of working in a small town? I know a lot of our students are coming from a big city like Austin.
Yeah.
So wanting to know like maybe 3 advantages of working in a small town like Mississippi.
Sure. Low cost of living. So certainly you can get a 2-bedroom, really nice apartment near here for, between, $1,200-1,500 a month. Not to mention, groceries and entertainment and things like that. And the word of mouth with being able to have referrals from interfamily, and being able to make inroads with doctors. So I am kind of a Western brained acupuncturist. And so speaking with medical doctors about acupuncture is something that I love to do. A lot of acupuncturists don't feel comfortable doing that, but I think that it is much to our advantage to be able to communicate with Western medicine on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what the advantage is. And so, you get kind of lost in the fray when you have such a big city, but here, OBGYNs send patients to me. And I think that has been a real leg up for me to be able to have that line of communication and referral for doctors, because when your doctor says you should really try acupuncture before you try X, Y, and Z, then that gives you credence like almost nothing else.
That is true. Well, thank you for sharing that information.
I have a question. I have a question related to that, because that's so important. And I wondered, have you thought about partnering with one of the Western OB-GYNs and publishing so that you're sharing that story and it's coming from both the acupuncturists, from the Western and Eastern perspective, just to really start helping other OB-GYNs, think, wow, maybe I need to be partnering with an acupuncturist.
Right. So the satellite clinic that I have with the fertility doctor is kind of my best answer to that, in that, we are collecting this data for frozen embryo transfers, but I'm not only seeing IVF patients, I'm seeing women that are trying to conceive naturally that have not even stepped foot into a fertility clinic. But definitely, I guess, partnering with OB-GYNs versus lots of referrals. So, there's these huge OB-GYN clinics and 2 or 3 doctors within that know my practice. They share the information amongst themselves, because as a natural extension of fertility, of treating fertility, you treat a lot of pregnancy, and then you get to treat them whenever they're ready to have the baby, and then postpartum. And so you get this whole portion of this woman's life where they continue to come in and out, and then they talk to their OB-GYNs about it, and then they talk to other partners about it. And so because I love my own brick and mortar, I don't really want to get outside of what I'm doing other than the satellite that I currently have. But I will say that making those relationships strong has just done nothing but help that referral relationship and, the friendly relationship as well. And I hope I answered your question, but I'll say that one of the ways that it helped was I had an OB-GYN that was trying to get pregnant. Western medical providers have a higher rate of infertility than the normal population. Normal population is 1 in 8 couples having trouble with infertility. And amongst healthcare workers, it's more like 1 in 4. And so I have a lot of healthcare workers that come and see me, including OB-GYNs when they're ready. And, when you help them, then they're going to talk to their patients about it. I would love to be able to gather more data on things like facilitating labor or helping with postpartum depression. but I probably need to get my PhD in order to figure out how to make that happen. But that might be on the list in my 50s.
Well, but I just think it would be such an opportunity to have because so many OB-GYNs, you're in this wonderful place where you've got a great relationship with a group of OB-GYNs where you're at, but there's so many have not explored acupuncture for their patient or are trying to think in a more integrative fashion for their patients. So I keep thinking, how do we get the word out there more effectively? And I think you working with OB-GYNs very successfully, if there could be, and maybe it's well, I hadn't thought of it. Maybe we may tap into you through our marketing department because we've been putting together some interviews.
Yeah.
And maybe we do an interview and then maybe we put that out in social media, but figure out how to really target OB-GYNs in our area. I just think the more we can get the word out, the better, because then the physicians will be more open to reaching out to acupuncturists.
Well, I will say that several years ago, I wrote letters to OB-GYNs.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just like, I'm a specialist in fertility, but I also treat pregnancy for morning sickness and sciatica and headaches. And, I don't really say a whole lot about labor because that's a sensitive thing, but patients know about it. I talk to them about it. OB-GYNs can be kind of funny about labor and labor induction with acupuncture. So all that to say that the postpartum period as well. And so I just introduced myself and that really helped put acupuncture as well as my name in front of people. And they may not have looked at it, but their nurse practitioner may have, or their office manager may have. And when somebody hears the same name or acupuncture as related to, fertility or pregnancy, then, it's going to build on itself. And that's what happened. Is that over time, it's like, oh, I think I remember that letter that she sent me 2 years ago or what have you. And so just a simple snail mail and not necessarily something that's going to, be like an ad was much to my advantage. I was really just going to try anything. I'm hard to discourage.
Which is great.
Definitely very great. I think I know I have been inspired by your lecture today, your presentation. I'm learning each day. And with your session, I even was able to find out another benefit of acupuncture, and I'm new to the field myself. So thank you for that. I know a lot of students are going to be moved, by your story and your journey. And I do have one more question for you. With the open position you have, how can a student reach out to you if they're interested in the role?
Sure, you can email me, Jerusha at sproutedheartacupuncture.com. You can go to sproutedheartacupuncture.com and the name is there. My cell phone is 601-850-0970. I'm more than happy to just old-fashioned pick up the phone and talk to people. I like to talk. And so I'm more than happy to share my time whenever I have it. And so that's a great way to get to know people anyway. So I would say email or phone call would be a best bet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't want to leave without sharing some pictures, that you sent to me.
Okay, so this is me. The guy in the middle he was our acupuncture warrior. That's Senator Burton. He was our champion in the Senate for getting our bill passed in 2009. And then to the left, we have Dennis Holmes, acupuncturist, Christian Aaron, acupuncturist, Senator Burton, myself, and then we had a lobbyist at the time. And so we gave him an award for just generally being our hero. So that was a lot of fun. That was 2 years after we got our Practice Act going.
Awesome. Okay, and this one right here, see another one.
Okay, so this is a few years later. This woman in yellow is a senator as well, and she was a big supporter. She had cancer, And she had heard about acupuncture being helpful during chemo, but had never had the opportunity to try it because there was no acupuncture. So she was great. And we always set up in the rotunda of the Capitol every year for Mississippi Oriental Medicine Association. And we do demonstrations and hand out information cards just to talk to our people, to let them know that we are a profession that is here to stay.
Awesome. All right, and this final picture right here.
Okay, this is me giving Senator Burton acupuncture on governing vessel 20. He is just so wonderful, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And we didn't start to do demonstrations until later, but it sure does draw a crowd at the Capitol. It's pretty great.
Awesome. All right, so this is the job posting right here that I have open. And I could just move this over some. Okay, so I just want to put on the screen right here is your email address that students can, oops, I don't know what it is. Students can go ahead and send an email to you if they're wanting to inquire about that position.
Yay.
Awesome, yay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jerusha, and we'll be in contact. It sounds like, we may have some questions for you concerning the, clinic. I think, Mary, you asked me about the clinic questions and things like that, partnership with the OBGYN and just putting some marketing out there with the OBGYN. So we probably will be in touch with you, but I do want to say thank you. Thank you for coming back. And whenever you're in Austin, please visit us, and stop by our campus and say hello to us so we can put a face to your name. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to my story. Y'all have a great afternoon, and AOMA is the best. Y'all are all in really good hands.
Thank you very much for being here. Really,
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thanks so much.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you so much.
You too.
Have a
Take
great
care.
one. Bye.